A wealthy black woman, billionaire and owner of a private jet, is denied entry by a prejudiced crew. When she reveals the truth, that the jet is hers, their arrogance crumbles. What she does next will shock even the most jaded. But let's start from the beginning. Samantha Johnson, a 34-year-old self-made billionaire, stood with unshakable poise on the sunlit tarmac of Miami's private airport. Her tailored navy suit hugged her frame with precision, exuding the effortless authority of someone who had climbed her way to the top in a tech world dominated by skeptics. A light breeze tugged at her sleek black hair, tied back in a bun, as the glint of her gold watch caught the sunlight. She was here to board her jet for an urgent business trip to New York, but the confident anticipation that had carried her to this moment dissipated when she was met with a blockade of unexpected hostility. The crew of the private jet, led by Captain Thomas Sanders, a middle-aged man whose uniform seemed to amplify his condescending demeanor, stood rigidly in her path. His piercing blue eyes regarded her with poorly masked incredulity, his polite smile failing to conceal his judgment. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he began, his tone syrupy with insincerity. "This jet is reserved for VIPs only. You must be mistaken." Samantha's sharp, dark eyes locked onto his, her expression unwavering. "I am the VIP," she replied evenly, her voice crisp and commanding. "Samantha Johnson." The statement hung in the air like a challenge. For a fleeting moment, Thomas's mask slipped, disbelief flickering across his face before it twisted into a smirk. "Right," he said, the word heavy with mockery. "Let me just double-check. In the meantime, you might want to wait in the lounge." Behind her, Marcus, her ever-loyal assistant, stepped forward, ready to defend her honor. But Samantha raised a hand, silencing him. Her gaze shifted from Thomas to the murmuring crew behind him, noting their dismissive glances and whispers, barely disguised as professional exchanges. She clenched her jaw, the sting of their prejudice familiar, but no less infuriating. "Of course," she said coolly, turning on her heel toward the lounge. Her stride was measured, but her mind was racing, plotting her next move. The battle had only just begun, and she wasn't one to lose. Inside the lavish lounge, Samantha Johnson sat in a plush leather chair, its gold-accented arms cold under her fingertips. The room, designed to ooze opulence with its crystal chandeliers and gleaming marble floors, felt sterile and devoid of warmth, a stark contrast to the storm of emotions brewing within her. She reached for her phone, her polished nails tapping lightly on the screen as she dialed her legal team. Her tone remained calm and composed, each word precise, as she relayed the situation. Samantha was no stranger to prejudice wrapped in professional courtesy, but she knew how to weaponize the law and her influence to fight back. Across the room, Marcus stood near the floor-to-ceiling windows, observing the crew stationed outside. Their laughter carried faintly through the glass, their gestures exaggerated as they exchanged thinly veiled comments about entitlement. Marcus's jaw tightened, his fists clenching subtly at his sides, but he remained silent, his focus never straying far from Samantha. An hour crawled by before the sound of approaching footsteps echoed in the corridor. The lounge doors swung open, and Thomas Sanders entered, his self-assured smirk firmly in place. "Unfortunately, there's been a miscommunication," he began, feigning regret. "The owner of this jet isn't available for discussions right now." Samantha stood, her movements unhurried, her tailored suit pristine despite the tension in the air. Her serene expression belied the fury simmering beneath the surface. "Good," she said with icy precision. "Then we'll have that discussion now." Without waiting for a response, she strode past Thomas, her heels clicking decisively against the marble floor. Marcus followed closely, his determined presence a silent show of solidarity. Reaching the jet, Samantha pulled her security credentials from her pocket, presenting them with effortless authority. The crew froze, their smirks dissolving into wide-eyed disbelief as she ascended the steps and entered the cabin. Every detail bore her unmistakable mark: the custom monogrammed headrests, the sleek decor matching her personal taste. Thomas, pale and visibly shaken, stammered, "This is your jet?" "Indeed," Samantha replied, her voice sharp and unyielding. "Now gather your team and leave. Effective immediately, your services are no longer required." As the dismissed crew filed out of the jet, their faces pale and shoulders slumped, Samantha Johnson's calm exterior cracked into a sharp, triumphant smile. She stood near the entrance of the cabin, watching them descend the steps one by one, their earlier arrogance replaced with uneasy silence. The taste of justice lingered sweetly, but Samantha wasn't finished yet. Reaching for her phone, she called her PR team, her voice sharp and direct. "I want this incident documented, now." Within minutes, her team arrived with cameras and started capturing the scene. The crew's departure, their unconvincing apologies, and Samantha's powerful presence as she stood resolute at the top of the jet's staircase. As the final footage was uploaded, social media began to erupt. Hashtags like #KnowHerName and #FlightPrivilege trended within hours, turning Samantha's ordeal into a rallying cry against systemic discrimination. The airline that managed her jet's operations scrambled to contain the fallout. Their hurriedly crafted public apology, complete with corporate jargon and vague promises of internal reviews, landed with a thud. Samantha's reputation as a bold innovator had earned her global respect, but she knew an empty apology wasn't enough. She needed this moment to be more than personal vindication. It had to be a turning point. The next day, Samantha stood at the center of a packed press conference. Flashes from cameras illuminated her composed face, but her eyes burned with determination. Her words rang out clearly, resonating with millions watching online. "This isn't just about me," she began, her voice steady but impassioned. "Wealth doesn't protect us from prejudice. No matter how far we've come or what we've achieved, systemic racism continues to thrive in the shadows of our institutions." She paused, letting her words sink in before delivering her closing message. "But we have the power to confront it head-on, to hold those responsible accountable, and to demand a better world, not just for ourselves, but for the generations to come." The press room erupted in applause, and Samantha walked off the stage knowing her fight wasn't over. But her voice was louder than ever. 2 weeks after the incident that shook the aviation world, Samantha Johnson stood at a podium in a gleaming conference room, the logo of her newly launched initiative, Open Skies, prominently displayed behind her. Cameras flashed as she outlined her vision to transform the aviation industry into a more inclusive and equitable space. The initiative promised scholarships for aspiring pilots and flight crew from underrepresented backgrounds, mandatory diversity training for existing staff, and a mentorship program to dismantle systemic barriers. "Our skies should reflect the diversity of the world below," Samantha declared, her voice steady and impassioned. Open Skies isn't just a program. It's a movement to ensure that opportunities in aviation are available to everyone, regardless of race, gender, or background. The announcement sent ripples through the industry. Former crew members, who had quietly supported Samantha during the ordeal, began reaching out, eager to join her initiative. Their letters and messages spoke of gratitude for her courage and hope for a better workplace environment. Samantha welcomed them, knowing their experiences could drive meaningful change. As for Captain Thomas and the crew responsible for her public humiliation, Their downfall was swift and merciless. Public outrage, fueled by viral footage and the relentless momentum of social media, left their careers in tatters. Petitions circulated, demanding that individuals involved in such discriminatory acts never work in the aviation sector again. Airlines distanced themselves, their names becoming synonymous with prejudice rather than professionalism. For Samantha, this wasn't about vengeance. It was about accountability. The industry needed a clear message. Such behavior would not go unpunished. On the day of her first flight under open skies, Samantha boarded her jet with a newly hired, diverse crew. Each face reflected her commitment to inclusion, their shared excitement evident in their confident smiles and professional demeanor. Settling into her seat, Samantha gazed out of the window as the engines roared to life. The endless horizon stretched before her, promising new battles and greater victories. As the jet climbed higher into the sky, Samantha's resolve crystallized. This flight wasn't just about reaching New York. It was a journey toward equality and the dismantling of barriers she was determined to conquer.